Hey everyone, learning how to draw anatomy is less difficult than you think. It's true. We often get intimidated by all of the terminology, the lines, and the details of the 206 bones, the 600 muscles, and the 78 inner organs. Now, there's tons of resources out there to learn how to draw anatomy. However, if you go about it unplanned, we're going to end up just wasting a bunch of time. So today we're going to break down the very process that I use to practice drawing anatomy, and by the end of this video, you'll have everything that you need to draw those bodacious babes and those hunky hulks. So, let's get after it. Alright, if you're drawing traditionally, here's a quick review of everything that you'll need. You'll need paper, pencil, eraser, emotional support animal. Now lastly, what we'll need is a schedule. Learning how to draw anatomy does take time and dedication, and as I mentioned, if we go about it unplanned, we'll end up wasting a bunch of time and we won't really have an understanding of how the body and the muscles interlock and coordinate with one another. So to avoid feeling overwhelmed, we want to take it from the top down and focus on one body part at a time. By doing this, this will help us understand the form and the movement of each body part. Now, here's a recommended list. We want to start with the head and the neck, but we can add the facial features and details later. We'll then move down to the spine, the rib cage, and the major muscle groups, such as the chest, the abdomen, and the back. Then we want to make sure that we're not a
armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you?
Then we'll add the arms, the legs, and then we'll get to the tricky hands and feet. Now we won't be able to cover all of that today, but today we're going to use the arm for example. So once we identify what we want to focus on, we'll turn to our final necessity, references. Now if you don't know where to look for references, I'll share a video of 6 different websites you can use that offer complimentary resources at the end of this tutorial. Some of these websites do offer cosplay images that will make help learning the experience more fun. And what you want to do is you want to find and select the references that resonate the most with you. But keep in mind that the more muscle definition, the better. So think like bodybuilders, yogis, swimsuit dudes, and dudettes. Now, for the most part, I really enjoy using posemaniacs.com, as you can see all the strands and bands of the muscles of the figure. Now, this is where we're going to put them to use. If you're going to draw along, please remember to pause as we draw. This will be a rough sketch just to identify the basics of what we want to understand when drawing anatomy. Okay, so first we're going to start by drawing over the reference. So we'll start with a big circle for the shoulder, a line over to the elbow, and then a line up to the wrist and the fist area. Now we'll draw over here in our blank space and kind of replicate that. Big circle for the shoulder, a line over to the elbow, put a little circle there, and then a line up for the forearm, leading out to our clenched fist. Now we're not going to dive too much into the hand today, but we will practice it slightly. Now here's where we can start, kind of basically breaking it down into our simplified structure. Now since this is a flexed muscle, this area for the bicep is going to be fairly smaller or shorter. And I'll just draw in a basic, cylinder slash rectangle. Now I don't really like where I put that elbow spot, so I'm going to drop that down a little bit. Then I'm going to section off this kind of cone shape area for the forearm. So we'll bring that down, and also remember to turn your paper to get those exact lines that you really need. So again, we're going to kind of cone this out and just make it this basic shape, and we'll leave that space for the elbow area. Now this is where we'll start sculpting our anatomy. We have this rear deltoid that's casting a bit of shadow and showing some prominence over the arm. So we'll want to draw a line into that, somewhat middle section of the arm, and then swoop up to make sure that we're capturing that little bit of front deltoid. We'll also draw some lines to define that medium deltoid, as the shoulder is 3 muscles built into one major muscle group. So we'll do some definitive lines there, and now we can start seeing where also, the arm and the shoulder also connect into our lats. So we're not studying that too much, but that's where we want to make sure that we understand the interlocking. Now we'll just kind of sculpt out our bicep. Since this is a flexed muscle, the muscle is going to be a bit tighter into a ball shape, but then we have that overlapping skin that's going to sit over that muscle and then cut down into just a slight little gap in between the bicep and where the forearm muscles meet. Now we'll define our tricep. As it does split right at the top, we have that section that's casting that shadow, as it is fairly hulked out and has a little bit of a divot just to separate that. Then we got the rear part of the tricep that's going to swoop down, and we see it aligns with basically somewhat adjacent to the other part of the tricep. Now it's going to swoop up, but then we will have a little bit of an overlap and a divot for that fat and that skin that's going to sit over our elbow area. Now we'll kind of, well, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of sculpt out this fist a little bit more so that we understand the movement of the wrist. It's going to swoop down into the forearm. Now it doesn't go exactly straight down. You can kind of see how it pops out and then pops back in, as you can see here. So we're going to put that back in. We're going to draw that line back in to meet the hook of that elbow. And then you can kind of see where I had that original circle placement for the elbow. It's got a little bit of that muscle that's really taking prominence and just kind of pinching into the skin there since it's really flexed. Now we have a little bit of that wrist that's going to come down into that nice meaty forearm muscle, and we're going to do that overlapping line to really show the prominence of where that skin is going to be creased since it is flexed out. Now I'm going to draw a little bit more of this hand in here. Again, we're not really studying the hand too much, but when you are studying anatomy, it is important to practice the other ligaments and the other muscle groups that interlock with one another. Again, what we learned from Loomis is that drawing one hand a day really helps. So now you can see everything is kind of interlocked and we have a general idea of our arm here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just erase all of our guidelines. You know, those lines were meant to be drawn super light, just so that they could really guide us in the placement of our anatomy. Remember to draw lightly, as some pencils are going to stick to paper a little bit more. Each lead is fairly different, and leads will stick to certain ones. Now this is where you can really understand, you know, what lines take prominence, and I'm just going to go ahead and clean it up here to give it a little bit smoother lines, to really sculpt that anatomy and get the overall idea of this flexed muscle. And as you can see, I'm being swift with my motions, just trying to not be too sketchy. But again, when you're practicing, things don't need to be perfect. You know, this is where we're just studying and learning and observing. Now you can go back and you can understand, okay, like what do you like and what do you don't like. And there you have it. That's basically just the idea of the overall studying of generic anatomy. However, if you're looking to action-pack your anatomy, play around with it and have fun. You know, go big, hulk out those biceps, stretch out those fantastic torsos, and curve out those, whoa, chill. And there you have it. That's basically everything that you need to study anatomy. Well, almost everything. As always, I have some bonus tips to further assist you. First, let go of perfection. Your studies are not going to be great at first, and the sooner you can simply accept your current skill level, the sooner you can start enjoying the process. You also want to study different artists. You want to take note on what muscles they emphasize, what they exaggerate, and what they simplify. And I can't stress this enough. Just because you did it once doesn't mean you mastered it. You want repetition. You're probably sick of hearing it, but practice is the only way to succeed and build the skills that you really need to master drawing anatomy. Just because you did one study or took one course on human anatomy doesn't mean that you mastered it. So try to fill at least one page per day. Even a few minutes a day can make a huge difference. And as I mentioned before, this is really helpful, but incorporate studying with fan art. I mentioned this in my Loomis figure drawing for all it's worth tutorial. When studying anatomy, you'll find some of the references kind of boring and you can lose the drive to practice, but this is where you want to have fun with it. Now, thank you guys for watching. Remember, this isn't a one-size-fits-all guide, and I do want to hear from you in the comments on what helps you study anatomy. Now, to further assist you, as it is my mission to make you the artist that you are meant to be, I have provided a calendar in the description, which you can download free of charge. Remember to post your drawings online and seek feedback. You're all welcome to join the Artistic Avenger Discord channel, or you can find me on Reddit where I provide feedback to at least one artist per day. Now, for more art tutorials and tips, remember to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Remember, mastering anatomy takes time and practice. Stay consistent, have fun, and most importantly, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Until next time, stay radical.